time for Bring It In. We didn't do it last week, David. I missed you. How's it going?
I miss you too. It's going fine. Looking forward to a pretty, we didn't know if we'd get to this day, but we did. We got the playoffs and everyone's healthy and it's exciting.
I'm not sure. Let's just give our Zoom here. It's amateur hour here because I'm the producer. Judy's here, but let's make sure everybody joins. Looks like we're having a little bit of delay. Judy's probably rolling her eyes like, Henry, this is not how this is supposed to go. And that's okay. We're just worried about Judy's Wi-Fi. Okay. Should we call it good enough? Look, Gerard's here. Okay. The playoffs start today, David. The playoffs start today. Today!
Very soon.
We've been talking a lot. You've been watching a ton of games. I've been watching not as many games because I was at the beach, but quite a few. And I'm super excited about this thing that's happening, which is the NBA had its three-point revolution. And now it's like the next step. And I think we have a couple of themes that I'd love to open discussing with you, which is starting with the Bucks are the best defensive team in the NBA, and they permit the most three-pointers attempted. That's not what we thought was supposed to happen. Talk us through what you see there.
Yeah, so we noticed that the Bucks were just allowing more threes per game. This has been going on all season, and yet they were by far the world's best defensive team. And so I had a theory as to why, and so I called now I can say he's my dear friend. He was a longtime assistant. We've had him on the show, Ryan Pannone, who is the head coach of the G League team for the Pelicans. And I wanted Ryan's view because he's probably smarter than me now, and he studies this stuff so much. But he is trained under my wing, so he sees it the game same way I do, which isn't so great. They're just better, everyone, at contesting threes. So going back, Henry, 20 years, we always focus on contesting jump shots, and it just is hard to do it when you're way out of three-point line, and you also have to protect the rim, which the Bucks are amazing at, right? So you got to protect the rim and then contest threes. And then I think this is just what I think is happening is Milwaukee is not letting you get the actions you want early in a 24-second possession. And if you remember, and we've done this before, like back in Troop days at ESPN, that clock is also a sixth defender when it gets down to 3-2-1, right? So as it's clicking down to 3-2-1, teams are starting to panic, and they got to take a three. And Milwaukee is there to guard it. And we know that players almost invariably shoot worse when contested as opposed to uncontested, which is why we're always searching for uncontested threes. And they've just got a formula where they can both defend the paint, and it helps to have Giannis and Brook Lopez, let's be fair, right? And then also go out and contest threes. You still get them off. If you don't shoot it, the clock goes off. You can't even get it off as a rebound or anything. And we years ago, I had an assistant who did a Oklahoma City Thunder. You know this well. He did a mini camp with them, and he came back and he said, Scott Brooks is really stressing a stick hand, which is when you put imagine your hands a long stick and put it up in the air, and that is what we're happy with. I've been teaching it ever since. This probably since 2007 or 08. Get your stick hand up, live with the result, and the Bucks are the best in the world at getting their stick hand up, not fouling, contesting the threes, and teams are taking them and missing.
So I think it really started with Hollinger. It was just a mind-blowing piece of data, which was the number of three-pointers attempted was a good barometer of how good your team was.
I remember this.
This was a whatever 8-9 years ago sign.
Yeah.
That the league was changing, right? That the smart strategy was more threes. So now we have the team that's allowing more threes is winning. So that's a shift, right? And another shift. I love this. This is so great. So Mike D'Antoni said to me many years ago, all he ever wanted was layups. He's the high priest of threes. He's the reason that everybody shoots a gazillion threes, the little hockey stick graph of how many threes. And he said, we just wanted layups. Well, like what? What's he talking about? Well, this is how you get the defense out of the paint, right? This is how you get Steve Nash to score at the rim is by having Joe Johnson over here and everybody can shoot threes. Okay, well now he's got the team with no center at all, right? And John Hollinger writes in his preview of that series a huge point that's kind of buried. He says Houston's three-point shooting is basically a ruse at this point, a trick to tempt you away from guarding more valuable space at the rim. The Rockets only shot 34.5% on threes this year. McLemore is the only individual to make more than 36.3. On the other hand, they shot 55.7% inside the arc, the second best mark in the league, and with the best free throw rate piled on top. So this is like the history-making three-point shooting team doesn't even really like threes anymore. It's so crazy.
And they're shooting 52 a game in the Orlando campus. On the Orlando campus, 52 is by far the most. I think Utah is actually second most, which is a change for them. They've gone up a little bit. I've always likened it to this. Think of the boxer. The boxer wants to hit you in the chin and knock you out. So how do you do that? Beat the hell out of his belly, right? You've got to get him to lower his defense. You can knock him out, right? Yeah. To me, it's the same thing, and always has been. The change is, and to your point, it used to be we thought the threes were the equivalent to the punch to the jaw. And in reality, it might be the other way around. That if I can just get you to guard those threes, in a sense, it's slowing you down so I can pulverize you with the most effective shot, which are dunks and free throws. Let's face it. Both of those have a higher probability of points per possession, a dunk or free throws by almost anyone, than a three. And so this is where I think Milwaukee is also smart. They're making sure their best paint protectors are schematically asked to contest the least effective shooters from their opponent, which means they can have more license to race to the rim to make an impact on those shots inside. That's how their strategy is playing out all season.
Well, I think, and like the big question for Mike D'Antoni, right, is when James Harden beats his man and gets into the paint, is Steven Adams standing right there or not, right? And like if you shoot 55 threes a game, he's probably not, right? He's out somewhere running over from the corner.
He's definitely not. He's definitely not because, and so now take it a step further. When you get more shooters on the court, you're going to like this a lot, Henry, because we've argued about this. You and I are on the same side.
We love arguing. Oh,
I know that, but we're on the same side.
We're not arguing.
Unfortunately, we're on the same side. So we've often talked, and you heard me say this, watching games in the 80s when they had the illegal defensive rules was a very interesting experience of, I can't go help, I can't go up, I have to run and help. Watch Jordan's tape. He'd be playing one-on-one for a while, and then when he finally broke the plane where that in terms of the rules allowed defenders to get to him, they might be guarding a guy in Alaska, and they got to race in. I mean, they're flying in out of control to guard. It's kind of that way now because if you can get four shooters around the driver, those four guys, when the driver smokes his man, have to come flying in to make a play, and then there's rotation on the perimeter, all of that. And so I've always thought to build the best-looking team, get 80% of your guys on the court need to be athletes and 80% need to be shooters, and I don't care about size. And I told you this like 6 or 7 years ago. I don't care how tall they are, how small they are. 4 or 5 have to be shooters, 4 or 5 have to be athletes, and let's go play. Now, if you can get, an amazing center, great. But it'd be great if he's athletic and or can shoot threes too. So that's why Anthony Davis, by the way, is so freaking good, right? So Houston's one of those teams that really make you make that decision. And they have a guy in James Harden that alone is getting 12, 13, 14 free throws a game. But I like John's point about the ruse. Yeah. That's what the step-back threes are. Let him shoot it. And we'll get to Damian Lillard and his step-backs in a minute because I have some things about Damian that you'll like. I know you'll like. But I think the mistake is – as long as it's
praise, I'm getting – yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't help it. But I would let James take all those step-back threes he wants and protect the rim.
And what would you tell – would you change your big rotation playing against the Rockets compared to normal? Or would you keep your bigs in normal minutes?
It really is based on how they can defend. Well, in this case, we're dealing with Oklahoma City, right? So how can Steven Adams – I mean, just do the math. Is he going to help us enough offensively and on the offensive glass? Because no one else on the team goes to the offensive glass at all. Only he does. And he does it better than almost the entire Rockets team, just about. I think John even wrote that, Hollinger. So do I get enough on one side to make up for his deficiencies defense and the other? He's not a great rim protector. He's big enough to make somewhat of a difference, but he's not going to post up PJ Tucker. Now there is an interesting thing to consider.
Actually, I bet he will. I bet they'll do that, right? They can't help themselves. It doesn't
Yes,
work, but they do
they
it.
will. And
Yeah.
this is the point that John mentioned in his piece that we've talked about for years. Behind the scenes, the price the undersized big has to pay physically when they're guarding the real true centers. PJ Tucker, they need to order a massage staff on hand at all times. He is going to be worn out. Steven
Oh.
Adams is an enormously huge man who enjoys being enormously huge. Like, he's the bully that knows he's the bully. He's a nice enough guy off the court. Everyone loves him. On the court, I can only imagine the welts. And PJ Tucker is used to delivering pain. But in this series, he's going to have the pain delivered to him. Adams is a beast. And so there's an argument on the wear down tactics, which I think is important because John likes the Rockets bench more than I do. If Ben McLemore is the answer to what you're going to get from your bench production, that's a concern for me.
Well, it has to be Eric Gordon, but he's been terrible this year.
He's been terrible, right? Except for one amazing game, he's been terrible.
What's wrong with him? Why isn't he good anymore? He was amazing.
He was amazing last year. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's a lack of spirit there. If he felt like why do we have to get Russell Westbrook? I could have been the second guy. You don't know. But it's too bad because he was very, very good, and he is injury prone for sure.
I definitely watch that team now. I love the exciting experiment of what they're doing. But one of the things, maybe this is you in my ear, but the work, James Harden can be effective, like switching onto a big, but the work level is sick, right? Like Robert Covington and PJ Tucker and James Harden are working. They have to be so on top of their mental game and physical game, and I think they're just going to get worn down.
Well, you know better than me the difference between aerobic and anaerobic exercise and the cost of each, right? The tax of each. There is so basketball is that unique combination of world-class dancers, racers, runners with amazing professional wrestlers.
Yeah.
And they have to do both. And I was an athlete growing up. I tried wrestling once, right? Once. And I could not, I was, 12. I couldn't catch my breath. Yeah. And I was so surprised. I played football, basketball, baseball, nothing. I couldn't wrestle for 3 minutes without being able to almost feel like I was going to die. Yeah. And try wrestling that big New Zealander, right? Yeah. Good luck with that. That is a challenge. I've told players over the years and this is going back 20 years, when they've said, Coach, my coach wants me to play some 5, and these are undersized 4s. And I always have said, oh, you can handle it. But for a season, it's going to come with a cost for sure. You're going to get physically worn down. So that answers your question. That's why someone like Nerlens Noel may not play very much in that particular series, is he doesn't have any anaerobic ability to wrestle anyone. He's a skinny little guy. Adams does. So I don't think he'll play a whole lot. Adams will. I like the Thunder in the series, actually, even if Westbrook played, although I think it's more of a toss-up. Now I like OKC considerably. I just think they're the better team in the last part of the year.
Yeah. Good question here from Joe goes, how much of the story, we opened with the story of the Rockets not being that great at shooting threes. How much of that is because of the defense? Because how people are defending them?
How much, why they're shooting so many threes, or why
they're not shooting them very well this year?
Oh, I don't think they have great shooters. I mean, again, Ben McLemore is their best shooter. I mean, and that's a problem. He's a guy that I just don't trust.
Why does that sound like an insult? I mean,
yeah, he's just. I mean, he's never made it for a reason. He has a lot of talent. He's never been someone you could trust, and now they have to trust him. Austin Rivers is brilliant with his craftiness, getting by people. He's amazing. He's got amazing timing to beat people off the dribble. Not a great shooter. And James Harden and Westbrook's not a good shooter. Robert Covington has not shot the ball well, and I don't know why, because I think his last 50 shots he made 12, if I remember. But it wasn't like he's exhausted. He was on break for 4 months. But that goes to our point where we talked about before, having to guard nothing but 5s, basically, him and PJ Tucker. And so
he did that, though. Remember, we had Nevada Smith on the show, and Robert played, I guess they're, G League bigs, but he would guard bigs and then race down and shoot threes, right? That's he's not new to him.
No, not new, but these are NBA bigs. These are, the G League are children. I mean, really teenagers sometimes, 18, 19, 20, incredibly talented guys. I love the G League talent, but they don't know how to use their bodies. They're just young guys. There's a wear and tear I think both are feeling. I do think the break is going to help Houston. I think they'll be fresher. That's why I think it'll be a great series. Otherwise, I like OKC a lot. And Harden is to bet against him is like betting against Damian. I think the Lakers are much better in Portland. We'll talk about this. But Damian Lillard and James Harden can win a series by themselves, and almost nobody can say that anymore. But those guys can't, because they can steal 2 games themselves, and then your team just has to play great once, and then the opponents have to play really terribly once, and you win 4 games. Like, that's how the math can work sometimes.
I mean, these are basically, and we can just switch to the Blazer-Lakers series now, but the super volatile high 3-point shooting offenses might win any game, right?
That's correct.
It just doesn't. If just those threes go in enough, you can't beat them.
I used to always say, including on True Hoop, when the Rockets and the Warriors were the 2 teams to beat, and the Warriors were the better team, my argument always was Houston taking 53s a game means in one particular game or 2, they're going to make 22 to 25. Yeah. So that's 66 to 75 points on 50 shots. On 22 mades, you're not going to be able to catch them because they're going to get fouled, they're going to get some layups, whatever. So you're right. And that's the same thing for Damian and Harden, is they can just go supernova.
Right. You see these moments where the Rockets are down by 9 and they're shooting 11 to 40 from 3. And the other team feels like, oh yeah, we're beating them. And it's then they just revert to their hotter shooting and
right.
And they won. Nothing else changed. Just those shots started going in.
I will tell you that I watched Lillard tape this morning.
Yeah.
And then I called my son up at Florida State and said, because he has my Synergy account. I got it approved by Synergy. They said, okay. I said, I need you to watch Damian. Yeah. His burst of speed off the dribble, because I don't think he's the best athlete out there, is incredible to watch. But the other thing, I didn't say this to him, but I was thinking, is I want him to watch who right now is the most dangerous offensive player in the world. He's the closest thing to Steph Curry I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. When Steph Curry was winning MVPs, every game he played, and I'm not easy to impress. I've seen a lot of threes in my life and plays. Every game Curry played, it was always something like, wait a second, what? Where did he shoot that from? How did he shoot that? The only guy that makes me do that a lot is JJ Redick, because I feel like he could shoot the ball while juggling. Yeah. And riding a bicycle. He breaks all the rules of physics, JJ does. Damian is on a different planet right now. And that is something, it's going to be good for LA. I'll tell you this, if they win the championship, Henry, I'm going to argue that it goes back to having to play against that guy in Series 1, because they don't have time to figure it out like Milwaukee does. You could be down 2-0 because Lillard might have 90 points in 2 games. On 61 shots, and they're going to be down 2-0, and I don't know if they'll come back from that. They have got to be on point right away, because Lillard is just in that Curry zone. He really is.
Well, and of course, the biggest concession of the bubble is home court advantage, which this is what the Lakers played hard all year for, and now they don't really have it, and so that 2-0 thing is a different problem than it used to be, right? There's a great Kirk Goldsberry point on ESPN, which is, of his 624 3-point attempts this season, a whopping 64% of them came after at least 2 dribbles. This is about Lillard. Yeah. League-wide, only 20% of triples came after multiple bounces per second spectrum tracking. Only Harden has tried more multiple dribble threes, but Harden can't match Lillard's accuracy. Harden made a respectable 34.9%. Lillard drained a disgusting 41.6% after at least 2 dribbles.
In the bubble?
All season.
That is absurd. I didn't realize. I read what you described, and I did not see that. That is unguardable.
You don't very often get David Thorpe to go, that is absurd.
Because here's the thing. The reason why he can get all those shots off, Henry, off 2 dribbles or more, is because of that burst of speed I was talking about. In my gym, I've coached a lot of Floridians, as you know, that are younger. I'm not talking about my pro guys. We all played football growing up. That's just kind of what you have to do. And in New Jersey, we have to go to school. We have to play football, right?
I don't even know what we do here.
Right, the rite of passage.
I don't know. Yeah.
And so in football, when you have the ball in your hands, let's say you're a tailback, and you see a hole, you have to explode through that hole. There's got to be an energetic surge quickly to get hammered, right? That's how Lillard plays right now with that burst. Westbrook has it, but Westbrook goes from 90 to 225. He's the best I've ever seen at it. Lillard can put you to sleep a little bit. And he's moving, not that slow. And then he's gone. He leaves big men in the dust. And so what do you do if you're a big man? Well, I don't want to get embarrassed at the rim. And we're going to talk about baseline drives in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of retreat with a deeper angle to cut off that rim run. And that's what Lillard wanted you to do in the first place so he could shoot the three.
Right.
And he can make it. And we practice this all the time with my pro guys. It's hard. And I tell them that when they get frustrated. When they've made 7 or 8 of 10 of every drill we do, catch and shoot or one dribble shoot, right? When you start moving, it's much, much harder, especially when you're not going straight line to the rim. It's a little easier that way because you're already kind of lined up. If you think about shooting, you got to get right to the rim and not go side to side so much. When you're going sideways, you're not going towards the rim. You have to redirect the ball. It's harder to do. Lillard clearly, I would guess, is the best in the league at this and could also burst by you. If he couldn't blow by you, he'd be way easier to guard from three, way easier. And he's not tall, so you can contest him better. So you can't get the stick hand up if you're racing to protect the paint all the time, which is what they do. And now you got to pick your poison because he's very good at finishing at the rim too. Before
we talk about this baseline thing, which I'm excited to talk about, fits our bigger theme of the second evolution of threes. This in the Brooklyn game, Lillard failed maybe 4 times to get the foul call when he kind of elevated with the defender behind him and tried a three, right? We know that in the bubble the calls have been tight, and he got that most of the bubble games, which is 3 freaking free throws, right? It's like as valuable as a possession can be. It feels to me like this is a decisive thing for the Blazers is, does Lillard get 3 free throws, 3-4 times a game like he's been doing? Or
yeah, I would make the same argument about Harden and the Rockets too.
It's Harden stuff. It is, yeah.
Yeah. So what I saw it almost every game in the bubble to some degree, live or on Synergy. I probably saw every game on Synergy to some degree, but I saw most of them live. And without question, what you said is right. Prior to that Brooklyn game, I thought they were the tightest calls I've seen in NBA games. Because the NBA games are always tighter anyway compared to Europe or college. It was even tighter. And then I thought the refs said, fuck it. It's a playing. It's playing to play in. It doesn't matter to Brooklyn. They stopped calling anything. It was rugby for the NBA standards. Rugby. And then to add rugby feeling to it was Nurkic flying all over the damn place, running people over, falling down as if he was 3 feet tall and he couldn't hurt himself. Like it was absurd watching that guy play as hard as he played at that size. I used to joke to you that when Mike Miller would dive when he was an older player, that I think he even might have said this. If he fell down, it'd be like Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah,
like he would lose his eyebrows. Yeah. Well, Nurkic is young, but he's so huge. Like I think everyone else might fall apart. Like the earth would shatter. So Brooklyn, the referees in that game just said, screw it. Let these guys just go play. I don't think it'll be like that. I do think they'll protect the shooters. And yes, it is the single best result of a possession on offense is to get fouled. So the literal single best possession of an offensive possession is getting fouled shooting a three.
Yeah.
Just pure math. So that only adds to the efficiency and production of what Lillard does, which is why it's important to consider not who's guarding Lillard, because he doesn't do that many ISOs from the top. It's who is guarding the guy he asked to come screen for him. Mm-hmm. Because that's the guy he's got to create space from. Whether he's zooming by them like he did Porzingis, as if he wasn't even there against the Mavericks, and also a fantastic game. Or in the case of LA, is it McGee? I don't think he's going to attack LeBron and Anthony Davis so much. And so that's the kind of chess matches we'll see is who's guarding whom to dictate who Lillard gets involved in ball screens.
I'm sorry, we're going to indulge my inner Blazer fan for just a second here. But Nurkic was shooting free throws late in the Brooklyn game. And late in the Grizzlies game on Saturday. And the camera angle had Nurk in the foreground, but in the background, Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum had like a meeting. And they were a little bit down and they were sweaty and just all business. Like they had some kind of and then they kind of drifted apart and you can see they were kind of like, all right, here goes. Like, we're gonna let this rip, right? And then the next thing that happened was CJ, I think, like ISO'd 3 of the next 4 possessions, which against John Morant. And I feel like it's like, oh, it was this big decision, right? This was like, do you attack where the defense is weakest, or do you attack where your offense is strongest, right? And I felt like CJ had been so for 10 days, but I felt like they had this little trust, and they were like, all right, you got the little guy on you, let her rip, and that's what happened. And I was like, wow, that's where Damian is not quite the same as every other star.
Well, going back to the CJ made the big shot, I think, against Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Lillard made every other big shot, but
Yeah.
CJ made like the final two to really give them the win. And Lillard told him, "You take it."
Yeah.
What he didn't say is, "I am just, fucking
Gassed.
exhausted." Yeah, gassed.
Yeah.
And I think Lillard, I do think you're right. I couldn't see the game. I was moving my kid into school. I think that I think Damian probably felt tired, but also Ja's a rookie. It's not just little.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is, we'll talk about the Denver, Utah, Michael Porter.
Yeah.
Junior he's an inexperienced player. That's going to factor in.
All right, so this baseline thing's a big deal. So David is brilliant and watched like 1 million hours of basketball, especially he watched like every single possession of Tim Duncan for a year more.
There was a period of time in a season where Duncan had the ball in the post, and for 175 consecutive possessions, he went middle. And everyone knew he wanted to go middle, and he still faked the other way to go middle for a reason.
There's a classic basketball moment, right? Is like defender, offensive player, and the question is, are they going to go right or left? And the answer for most of the best players, for most of the time that you and I have been alive, is you don't want to go the direction of the baseline because it traps you there. You have a bad angle to the basket, easy for the defense. But then I was just pointing out to you this morning, Lillard does it all the time now, which is a little bit of a wrinkle. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's where I was watching Lillard this morning. So the idea, I put a chapter in my book. It's called Baseline. The baseline is death, because I just kept telling my players when they turned it over all the time, stop going there. It's Death Valley. Because of what you said, you not only have the baseline as an out of bounds, right? You have no backboard angle, and there's lots of tough shots without using the backboard, and your passing options are limited. So defensively, you typically want to try to force baseline for the very same reason, right? And if you're going baseline, you're doing the defense wants. And I've always said there's exceptions to the rule. So here's what's happening with Damian, though. So Damian isn't typically on the wing to begin with. He has the ball in the middle, right? Or on the angles. And he uses that burst. But because everyone else on his team, except for Nurk, is a shooter, the guys are spread out, and he can read the game, right? This is a brilliant reader, not just player. So when he sees, okay, so we always say this, Henry. Here's something the average fan, I bet, would never know. When you're dealing with someone like Damian's talent, and almost every team has at least one or two guys like that in terms of driving ability, you never worry about beating the guy you're guarding. If you have to worry about how you beat him, you're not that level of a player. Okay? Like Shane Battier is different. He couldn't beat those guys. If you're a primary ball handler, can't beat the guy guarding you, you're not going to be a primary ball handler very long. It's where the other four helpers are that you have to factor in, which a lot of guys can't do. So Damian knows he's always going to cook the guy guarding, no matter who it is. But if it's Kristaps Porzingis, and this is the magical point, if it's the big guys that have to guard him from 84 feet, like deep on the sideline, trouble. So you can't wait for him at the three-point line. And then if you're standing at the three-point line, Henry, and he decides to drive maybe towards the block, you are going to be able to meet him at the rim and really impact his shot. But just another step and a half to 2 steps beyond the three-point line. So, for example, Porzingis' heels will be on the three-point line instead of the front of his sneakers. He is going to have that extra space, and he's going to do, we call that long right foot, right hand stretch to the rim. He's going to score on you all the time. And then the help's going to fly in from the other side. And now you have easy kickouts for three. There's no rotation when guys are flying towards the rim. So that's a wrinkle that guys like Lillard and Harden, those guys can do. Most other guys still can't do it. And he's doing it intelligently. He's got the right angle, the right approach to it. And it's all because of his shooting range and his burst.
That's because the help is happening so far away that he can.
Right. Yeah. You can't get back to the baseline in time. And so he's able to attack just underneath the block. He's Steph Curry right now. We are watching in that Orlando seeding games. That's what Curry looked like, and we had never seen it before. This is what I think.
Mm-hmm.
We had never seen it before. Well, now we've seen it twice.
So you're very clear, though, that the Lakers will win this series.
If CJ didn't have a broken back,
Yeah.
I certainly would feel like it's a 6 or 7 game series. This is not a 1-8 matchup. Portland is 3-4. This Portland team is a 3-4 in the West. They are every bit as good as Denver, if not better. All right. And that's the 3 seed. Okay. So they're a 3-4. But without CJ being at full strength, and there's a lot of, and I know Adina and Gerard love Carmelo, and we've written nice things about Carmelo. The players I've coached really like him, whatever. I'm sorry, I don't think he's going. I mean, I don't think he was great in Orlando. Because I traveled all weekend, I didn't study his final stats on how his team played with him. It's nice that he made some threes for sure, and it's a nice story. But he's still got to guard people. What I saw from him is a willingness to make a play if he only had to take a step and a half defensively, and he did. He would jump in a passing lane, step and a half. But I tell you what he wasn't willing to do. Nurkic went on the court more times in a 2-minute span in one game than I saw Melo do the entire.
You mean like diving on the floor kind of thing?
Yeah. Like recklessly making a play that might result in some kind of painful injury, bruise, whatever, to win a possession. I didn't see that from him. And I was not looking for it to find parts when he didn't do it. I was just watching the game. But in my mind, I just thought, I should have dove there. Yeah, I should have dove there. Ooh. He should have dove there. And at one point, I'm like, he just ain't diving. And so to beat the Lakers, you have to win every possession you possibly can, unless, and this is a big unless, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, if LeBron is not what he was all season, then that's a 7-game series.
So we have written, you and I both, like, basically, rah, Lakers, they're the favorites, blah, blah, blah. We've written a lot of stuff like that. And then more recently, we published a story about you watching the bubble saying, they won't win if LeBron's like he was at that point, maybe 4 games in. Where do we stand? How does LeBron look now?
Yeah, I mean, not great. Yeah, I think I've said this, I think probably on our show. I've done a lot of shows now because it's playoffs, so I don't remember when I said it, but it's we know this about LeBron, Henry. We know he's sandbagged us a bunch. Like, the Cavaliers have looked terrible in the spring. Yeah. And then they're world beaters playing amazing defense, and LeBron's guarding 6 guys at the same time, right?
We do this every year.
Every year, right? Exactly. So it's hard for me to say that with the pandemic and everything else, that he wasn't just – and I remember I even said this on our show. The way he defended was it Valanciunas in their first scrimmage? I don't remember. Oh, Boban. It was Boban. They played Dallas in their first scrimmage, right. And he was like scrapping with the world's tallest guy in the league, and he got mad at the ref called a foul. This was 6 seconds into possession 1 of game 1 of a scrimmage, right? And I thought, ooh boy, we got this LeBron. And then we never saw him again after the scrimmages ended. He didn't dribble great. He couldn't blow by people so easily, which is an enormously important factor. And he shot better in some of the games. He put up decent numbers, but I don't know. And so I tell you what, we'll know pretty quickly. I don't think LA is thinking this is a cruise like I think Milwaukee might feel. I don't think LA is thinking that. So if we're 1/2 in, I don't care what the score is, and LeBron is playing really hard, which I expect him to do, and really hard, and isn't necessarily all that effective with his skill and athletic game, that's going to be a gigantic problem for LA. And they will struggle to get by Portland. And they definitely won't win the West. They won't even come close. He's got to be fantastic like he was all year.
So there was one of his seasons in Cleveland, he was complaining on Twitter about his teammates, right? He was like, like it's a pet peeve, a hashtag pet peeve. You got to be on time, right? And that was the season that he went down to Miami and trained in the middle of the year. And one of his friends told him, like, just play basketball. Would you just stop with all this and just play basketball, right? And then I think that they went on to win a championship. When LeBron said that thing from the bubble about, like, I don't want to talk about it, but there's some off-court issues. Let's say that, right? Well, this man is well worn down how the media works, right? Like, right. if you don't want drama, you don't say anything, right? Like they spent a whole season, Dwayne Wade and LeBron never talking without each other there, so no one could misconstrue anything, right? Now LeBron goes alone and says, "Oh, we have problems. Trust me." Like he knows he's lighting a fuse, and the fuse goes to his teammates, right? Like he knows that he's pointing the finger. It just struck me as like, I don't know what it is, but I know that he made a choice there, and it's not one that's inspiring to his teammates, right? Like it just struck me as like a little bit of I mean, I'm in the tank on this one. I'm a Blazers fan. This particular analysis is difficult for me, but take what I just said there, and then over here, Damian Lillard released a rap track yesterday with where you go over to Damian's room and Gary Trent Jr. and Nasir Little, who's barely played all year, get to sing with Damian Lillard and release an album with Phil Really Cool included. You know what I mean? I'm like, if leadership is inspiring people, I'm like complaining about them in the media. F and
F.
over to your room to talk
we
about how your
shouldn't
life's hard. Hey,
we shouldn't just gloss over what you said, the first part especially, because it's really insightful commentary that I had not thought about, and you and I discussed this a year ago when the Anthony Davis trade rumors were happening with LA, and you said LeBron James does nothing without a plan. Everything is scripted out. And so your point on that is obvious. The second point of it is he is not letting emotions run his mouth. That's your other point.
No
right?
chance. Yeah,
no chance. He knew he wasn't just frustrated and angry and then needed to apologize and maybe didn't. He delivered the speech he intended to deliver before he got in front of the camera.
Right.
So I don't know what he was talking about. I don't know. But I tell you this, we'll know very quickly if it's been solved or not.
Right.
When they go to halftime, we will know because there is no excuse. They know how dangerous Damian is. And Nurkic is terrific. CJ is a question mark, and they respect him. But this is the Damian show right now. And it's a hot team, right? And you only get to win 4 games in 7. There's no let's go home. They're always home, right? Everyone's home. Both teams are home. I think if LA looks lethargic or isn't sharing, and LA has some problems, depending on Dion Waiters is almost as bad, if not as bad as depending on McLemore for Houston. Yeah. I don't trust Dion at all. I know that he can get some inefficient twos, meaning he's going to take a lot of twos to make some points. He's not I think he shot 18% from 3 or whatever in the seeding games. He's not an answer. Not Avery Bradley. Rajon Rondo comes back, and that's a good thing. But if Portland makes it a series, you're not wrong. Either it's LeBron doesn't have what he had, maybe it's the groin injury, or something's just not clicking for them, and then it's on. And then we'll see what Anthony Davis steps up with. Let's not forget about. Someone wrote that the Lakers have the 2 best players on the court in this series. I don't agree. I think if you looked at it from day one until now, I agree. I think if we consider who cares what happened in November, December? That was almost a year ago. I'm not even sure. When I did all my stats, I did it starting after the All-Star break. So at least it was almost an even number of games. Each team played about 10 games after the break before the pandemic break, after the All-Star break before the pandemic break, and then 8 games in the bubble, right? So it was more, at least we got some dose of, it's not just the seeding games, right? Damian Lillard is the best player in this series based on what we've seen this summer. They have the best player in this series. That is why it's not going to be a sweep. LA's got the next 2. Damian's the best player. As long as he has some gas in the tank, they're going to win at least 1 or 2 games.
And if I were a smarter person, I would have looked this up in advance. But I put it to you that the Blazers offense before Nurk was back was largely like CJ takes a turn ISOing, Dame takes a turn, Melo takes a turn. Since Nurk is back, these are like some of the finest screens humans have ever created, right? Often quasi-legal, but he's a giant man, and he'll put his hip into you really hard. And Dame is now a Steph-like pick-and-roll, ball-handling wizard with tons of space, which happens because Nurk is there, and Nurk's there now, right? Like, all the Dame stats from pre-Nurk, like the Zach Collins screen just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. I think there's like I'm not saying that this hot streak of Damian's is the new normal, but I do think that the offense is different with Nurk, and Nurk handles the ball and passes it really well. I just think the offense is different now.
Well, it can be different. The question will be, do they run it? And that's what I'd like to see. On Zach Lowe's podcast last week, I said the team that was the most impressive in terms of running their offense and executing was Miami.
Yeah.
They ran their stuff brilliantly and frequently. And probably because they don't have a lot of great one-on-one players, right? Jimmy Butler's shooting very poorly too, and that helps them. Actually helps them run their offense more. If Lillard decides he wants to be the king, and I don't mean that in a bad way, just because nobody can guard him, it actually hurts them some. It's going to have an energy tax to him. Other guys will be less involved. He's best when they're running their stuff, and then he launches the occasional logo three. There was another three in another game where, if I remember correctly, on those courts they have the Black Lives Matter at the top, and I think he shot it from like the A connecting the T on the side. Not quite as long as the logo shot, but really far away. A city near Orlando is where he was. Yeah. He'll mix some of that in, but they need to run their offense too to have a chance. And before I forget, we're some of Rockets OKC. One thing for anyone to pay attention to is watch Dennis Schroeder for the Thunder, because when you think about who the Rockets are going to be able to guard, CP3 is a brilliant pick and roll player. He's not a great ISO player anymore. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is, and Schroeder is way faster than both of them with the ball.
Yeah.
And so without Westbrook, that's a big loss for as an athlete, as athletes go for the Rockets. I don't know that they have anyone to keep Schroeder from scoring. And let's not forget, he averaged over 19 points a game. This is not a guy that scored 12 off the bench. He's one of the best players in the league now, one-on-one play. It's going to be – I think it's a big advantage for the Thunder to have him, and he can shoot threes too.
One thing I think about – you remember when Rajon Rondo was, in the finals for the Celtics as this sort of revelation. When I watched Schroeder, I think, I know he watched that video.
Yeah, he's very similar. He's just a way better shooter and probably not as smart.
Yeah.
Rondo might be the smart – in terms of pure intellect, from basketball point of view, he might be better than LeBron even. He's a true genius. He's smarter than all of us that way. There was one thing I want to talk. We haven't talked about Clippers yet. There's a stat for the Clippers I want to share.
Yeah.
Did you see it in the document?
I probably have it in front of me. Yeah, here you go. Fourth three-point percentage made.
Yeah. So they're fourth since the All-Star break. But now, just do me a favor, Henry. Are you reading the doc right now? You seeing those names? Yeah. I've been helping people to close their eyes. Pat Beverly, a cool 53%. JaMychal Green, 47%.
Did he take a lot of them? Pat Beverly didn't take very many, right?
5 a game.
Oh, that's a pretty good
number. JaMychal Green, 47. Paul George, 46.5. Pat Patterson, 45. Reggie Jackson, 41.3. Kawhi Leonard, 39. Lou Williams, 37. He's not even a shooter. And then Marcus Morris Sr., who's a good shooter, is at 31. So he'll get better. A good defender. What are you going to do against them? If they can play the way they're capable of playing with all those weapons, and then you've got Paul George and Kawhi and Pat Bev and Marcus Morris on defense, they're better than the Lakers. Montrez, right. I think he'll take some time. He has not done anything. So he'll be there, for round 2. They're going to play Dallas. I think they'll beat Dallas in round 1. So I want to take this test with you. And then I know we want to talk about the Pelicans, whatever. So I wrote this, and I'll read this. So since the All-Star break, this is a playoff matchup, okay? Team A is 23rd in offensive rating since the All-Star break. They're second on defense, 28th in opponents' points off turnovers, 23rd in opponents' fast break points, second and second chance points allowed, which is good, 6th in three-point percentage D, and 28th in three-point percentage made. And then Team B is 5th on offense, 22nd on D, second in opponent points off turnovers, 12th in opponents' fast break points, 1st in second chance points allowed, which are offensive rebounds, 16th in three-point percentage D, and 11th in made. Any idea what series that is? Because doesn't it sound like pretty even match teams?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Wait, so Team B is first in the NBA in three-point percentage made since the All-Star break. Is that what?
No, first and second chance allowed, Team B. They're in three-point made. Oh, they're 11th. My bad. 11th.
Right.
Yeah,
It
11
says,
three
just so
pointers.
you guys at home, it says 1 TH,
Yeah.
which I wasn't
They're
sure.
11th. Yeah, they're not.
Okay.
They're not a top 10 shooting team.
Mm.
And would you argue that it's a close series?
Yeah, but you wouldn't have put it here unless it were like a
Right.
2-7 or a 1-8, right?
Exactly. It's Milwaukee, Orlando. Team A is the
Oh,
Bucks.
wow.
They're 23rd in offense.
The little Bucks secret is that they had lost 3 out of 4, I think, before
Right.
they shut down, right? They
That's
had
right.
so when they were a little cold to start in the bubble, I'm like, they've actually had a little period of being like
That's
not
right.
that great.
They've
Yeah.
not played well since February or January. I have said they just were bored stiff for so long. They were running away with the East. I almost feel like, and I wonder what you think about this. I've coached on teams where I felt like we were grooving so well, we were peaking too early. A team that we thought might win a championship. I once coached a team in high school. We won 17 straight games against amazing competition. And we did slow. We started playing some young guys more. Like we didn't mind losing a little bit. Years ago, not too long ago, the Florida Gators won 30 straight games. And I thought I was rooting for them because my brothers love the Gators, and I went there a long time ago. And I thought it was a mistake to go into a 30-game win streak into the Final Four, and they lost to Shabazz Napier in Connecticut. I almost wanted them to lose earlier on before the NCAA tournament, just to kind of rejigger. I feel like that's what Milwaukee's done. We'll find out in game 1 and 2 if Milwaukee is, because I think they've been so bored.
So it's 11:46. We don't have a lot of time left. Before we switch to this Pelicans coaching thing really fast, let me just whip through. So you're picking Lakers over Blazers, Thunder over Rockets. What about Denver, Utah?
I was thinking Denver in 7, but now with Mike Conley out for a bit, I'll say Denver in 6, maybe even 5. They need Conley.
You're picking the Clippers over the Mavericks.
Yeah, 4 or 5. I think they're much better.
Milwaukee over Orlando.
Yeah, and 4.
And then we didn't talk about Miami, Indiana. That's interesting.
Or Boston, Philly. I don't think those series are as close as everyone else does. Well, not everyone, many people. I think Boston beats Philly in 5. I think they're without Ben Simmons defensively. Boston is loaded. They have 4 players averaging 17 more, shooting better than 37% from 3. 3 guys averaging over 20. Jaylen Brown is great. Jason Tatum's 46% from 3. Ben Simmons, who would normally guard him, isn't going to play, it looks like. I think the Celtics are much, much better. I think Philly's kind of in a tailspin. And then I think Miami's much better than Indiana without Oladipo being healthy. I love Indiana, but I think Miami's got multiple guys to slow TJ Warren down. And I said they were the most effective team running their offense of any team in the league. Adebayo is officially their 5, and he plays kind of in the pinch post like Nurkic does. Miami kills you with shooters. They have amazing shooters and cutters. You got to make a choice with them. And so I think I pick Miami in 5.
I have a little fun Miami fact for you from Cliff Goldsberry. Duncan Robinson on catch and shoot threes this year, more accurate than Klay Thompson has ever been.
Yeah, he's been
that.
He's my favorite. I use Daniel House from Houston, Duncan Robinson, and Kendrick Nunn for the Miami Heat. I've used them in talking to executives about the talent in the G League that aren't 21. They're a little older, and they've been branded as guys that really probably can't play in the NBA. Yeah, they can, because all 3 of those guys are starting for playoff teams, and they're good. And they chose not to go to Europe for this chance. Give them a chance. There's guys good enough to help playoff teams right now that play in the G League, or maybe they were in the bubble a little bit late in the season, whatever. And Duncan Robinson is one of many examples. I guarantee all 30 teams could have had this guy. When they all could make a play for him. Miami didn't value him that much, and now look at him. NBA teams, go find those guys that are there.
And of course, you're picking the Raptors over the Nets because everybody's picking the Raptors over the Nets.
Yes, I love what Jacques Vaughn did. I think he deserves the head job without question. That was his audition. But yeah, Toronto is a much better team.
Should we bring Gerard in? Gerard, we haven't seen you in a long time. Oh, I have to do it. I'm the host. Oh gosh. That's so hard. Judy, we miss you.
Judy took it over.
Okay, here we go. I think it's gonna now things are happening. Okay. Super professional. Hey, there you go.
What are you doing with no Judy around, buddy? Like this is
here.
A problem.
She's here, but she has shoddy Wi-Fi or iffy Wi-Fi today, so so we made executive decisions to make me run it terribly.
Kevin, no, Raptors and Nets is not going 6 games. The Nets are not good. Like, they're not good right now. Anyways, I'm well, Henry. How are you? Looking very vacation, tan. How was surfing?
It was, I'm not a good surfer, but I enjoy renting a surfboard. And the way it went really, and the Jersey Shore is a terrible place to surf, really. Like, often it's super rough and the waves break very close to the beach. And when it isn't, there just aren't very many waves. Like, sometimes they're very small. But the first 5 minutes of renting a surfboard for the week, I was just like, wave. I just stood up 5 out of 6 times. I'm like, oh, this week is going to be incredible for amateur surfer Henry Abbott to progress. And it never got better. Like, I never had a run like that again. I spent a lot of time like with a small child on the surfboard, like horsing around. I didn't have another good surfing 5 minutes the whole rest of the week. But surfing is much better than working in all cases. So that was a win. Getting playoff ready. Anyway, Gerard, I would like to talk about whatever you want to talk about, as long as it also includes the Pelicans head coaching search.
Well, I'm good with that. Coach, really quickly, how are you doing? Empty nest. I mean, I know you're doing great, but how are you really doing?
It hasn't really sunk in a whole lot yet, but honestly, and I was telling Judy before we were on air, it's a pandemic. My kids have had to sacrifice more than the average middle-aged man. My life isn't all that, other than not going to restaurants anymore. My life's pretty normal. 19-year-old kids ready to go to college and work their ass off to get there, whatever. Their lives kind of sucked. So I think that's kind of masked some of my emotion. I'm thrilled, and I'm busy as hell with NBA playoffs. I have a very busy day today. And my son will be calling me a bunch, I'm sure, to talking basketball. So at least I'll get that fixed. I'll miss my daughter and I's ice cream runs, but at least I'll get some basketball fixed with Max. But we're good.
Such sweet dudes. All right, Henry, back to this New Orleans Pelicans situation.
Thank you.
Here's what I think. Whoever Griff hires, and I'm sure this is what he's going to do, has to be down with whatever their scientific plan is for Zion, which I don't know that we even know what it is, but it seems as though they want to be cautious. But what's happening is, and you see it, they're getting a lot of pushback and pressure or noise from national media and people. Oh, there go the Pelicans again. They got a chance to win the game, and Zion's on the bench and not playing. And so it's going to have to be Griff sticking true to what he believes is right versus dealing with the noise. And as we know, owners are generally moved by what's happening outside with noise and how much he can manage that situation. I mean, we like Alvin. We think Alvin's a good coach, but maybe the Pelicans need, I hate that different voice, but just someone who has an idea of, okay, here's how we're going to maximize this dude's minutes within the context of keeping him healthy and, develop these other guys, because they got a lot of talent on that team. So they should be better than they are.
So you're saying the technical term for what you're talking about, I think, is called Kawhiing it up.
Something of that nature. I mean, it may not be every other game or whatever, but he needs to go see Marcus Elliott is what he needs to do probably, and figure out, all right, this is our plan, this is what we're gonna do, whatever. Like these old school guys like J Kidd and Ty Lue, they're probably not down with that kind of measured approach. They got to win games now, and that of course is the challenge of being a coach, right? It's I have to win now, but also protect this valuable person I have for the long term. Those two things don't often jive together.
It's honestly the challenge of our times, and this is quite serious, is can we find leaders who believe in science? It's literally it's the challenge of our times. Hey, David, I know well, Ryan Pannone is a friend of the show, works for the Pelicans organization, is a wonderful coach. Can he get this job? Is he a candidate? What's the deal?
No. I think he'd be an amazing hire, but no one's got that kind of guts. I love David Griffin, but he doesn't have that kind of guts to hire a guy with 1 year G League experience. Ryan would be an incredible coach. But I will tell you this, David and Trajan Langen, the GM, they have a plan. They have a process. I know what they went through before they hired Ryan. It was very impressive. They had a vision for what they wanted for this position, and they sought advice from people globally to find who ended up being Ryan Pannone, who is sought after by lots of teams. He's a brilliant young coach, and the world's finding that out, or at least the NBA league. They're going to do that times 10 for this job. But you guys are right. Managing Zion is a factor. Yeah, I don't know if it's the most important factor. There's lots of factors, but you've got to get buy-in from Team Zion, who has to understand that they are more important than Team Pelicans. And that means whatever it means. It means, yeah, we're not playing you in back-to-back or whatever all the different rules are, because they were totally right not to play him that first game for sure. What you do in the offseason, all these things factor in. And to David's credit, nothing against Alvin at all, but I think he's also thinking, guys, okay, we have a reformation project at hand. We made a run at this year. We kept Drew, whatever. It didn't quite make it. We've got some good young talent. We can move Drew, whatever, and then just grow naturally. Still might be a playoff contender, but the West is so loaded. They've got to be thinking 5-year, 6-year, 7-year window with 2 or 3 years where real legit playoff contenders. And so who is our coach to grow with and build with? And also, it's not just about managing Zion. It's about enhancing his game, right? What if I told you guys that in 4 years, Zion Williamson is going to look a lot like the way Blake Griffin played last year when he was a borderline top 5 player in the world? Like, that's how good Blake was. Who wouldn't say yes to that? So now I have to have a coach that has a vision for that, or maybe another vision that I didn't even think about that can make him being one of the best 5 players in the world. It can't just be about avoiding injury. It's also about how can we maximize our first pick in the draft? So if I was up for the job, not me personally, but if one of these guys wanted, come up with that vision. How am I going to make Zion the best player in the world? Because when you have one of the best players in the world, as Portland knows right now, you could beat anyone a lot, right? Now you have to have a second guy and a third guy, but let's get the first guy. Because not everyone had, maybe 5 team league, have a guy that can be the best player in the world any given night more than once. Everyone has. Eric Gordon scored 50 in 1 game, right? Yeah. Zion could do it a lot. How can we make that happen? That guy has a chance to get that job.
Do you have any names in mind? Does anybody strike you?
No, but I will tell you that I think they should consider really good assistant coaches too. Mm-hmm. And we tend not to. We want them proven, and that Nick Nurse wasn't proven. Yeah. Right? Jacques Vaughn was proven to be not good. And so nothing against Tyronn Lue, but he won with LeBron James. Jacques Vaughn, in a very, very small fishbowl, was the second best coach. The best was Monty Williams, and he wasn't a proven winner either.
Yeah.
They were the 2 best coaches, right? So find the guy that maybe has learned from his experiences, has learned under better coaches. And also, I will tell you this, David Griffin has a global vision. So if they hired a European guy, it wouldn't shock me one bit.
Yeah.
I love someone that thinks like Nick Nurse, right? Someone who clearly Nick has a philosophy, but he's also not willing to be like, oh, that's not working, scrap, we're doing something else. Absolutely. Right? Like someone who is able to be like, I have to change on the fly because this is important right now. Someone like Nurse, but I mean, how many people are like Nurse out there? Probably not a lot.
Henry knows I feel like the most important attribute is having an agile mind in his position. So that's what we're talking about. There's plenty of candidates, and I really trust. If I'm a Pelicans fan, I would trust these guys. They understand the process. They're going to find the perfect fit. It's going to be a while. There's no rush. They're not playing games for a while.
And you know what they're up against is, I mean, sports writers, that's us, are doing the sloppiest thing ever, which is, the Suns go 8-0 and then the season ends and the Gauzy video plays and they're like, oh, they've got to feel good about their future because they have a lot of good young players, right? That's true of 10 teams right now, right? Yeah. Which means 2 of them have terribly disappointing failures ahead, right? They're going to have all their Zions or all their Devins or whatever they have, and it's going to suck. And
the West is so
many
loaded.
Good teams right now.
The West is so loaded, and the Warriors are coming back next year.
Yeah.
Let's not forget them, right?
Yeah.
And the Spurs were scary.
Yeah.
Like if they have another miracle up their sleeve and get another player, Memphis is – I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr. didn't play against Portland. And he had 30-something. He had 30-something against him this year. He's Tim Duncan 2.0 potentially. Yeah. The West is low. You're totally right, Henry. If you miss this one, you're in trouble. You're the Kings. It's hard to get out your own way when you keep hiring the wrong guy.
No, this Pelicans coach needs to be exceptional. Yeah. Okay, you guys, hold on. We got to go. Judy just texted me. It's time to end the show. She's supposed to be here. I'm going to want to screw it up on her watch. Okay, got to go. It's been really fun.
Happy opening playoff day, everybody.
Thank you.